New AMD Ryzen 5 9600X 6-core CPU benchmark sleek while ASUS posts 55,000 points with Ryzen 9 9950XL and 2 overclock. AMD's Ryzen 5 9600X, the most entry-level Zen 5 desktop CPU with 6 cores, has been tested in Cinebench while the Ryzen 9 9950X posts a new LN2 record. AMD Ryzen 5 9600X CPU benchmarks show 10% gain over 7600X, Ryzen 9 9950X tested with LN2 by ASUS. New benchmarks of AMD's highest end and lowest end Zen 5" desktop CPUs have appeared online. The AMD Ryzen 5 9600X CPU benchmarks come from a leak posted by HXL while ASUS has showcased the overclocking performance of its ROG Crossrex 670 Gen motherboard at China Joy 2024. AMD Ryzen 7 9700X and Ryzen 5 9600X Zen 5 CPUs tested at both default and PBO configs, 2% uplift in Cyberpunk. Starting with the specifications. The AMD Ryzen 9 9950X 100,000,000,1277 CPU is the flagship offering with 2 Zen 5 CCDs and a single IOD. The CPU offers 16 cores, 32 threads, a base clock of 4.3 GHz, and a max boost clock of up to 5.7 GHz. It comes with 80 MB of cache, 64 MB L3 plus 16 MB L2, and has a TDP of 170 watts. Now in terms of clock speed, while the boost clock is identical to the Ryzen 9 7950X, the base clock is slightly dialed down by -200 MHz, but we can expect a lot of efficiency coming out of this flagship product, especially in terms of multi-threaded performance. The 6-core Zen 5" CPU appears to have been tested within the Cinebench R23 benchmark. There are 2 scores with one possibly running at the default configuration and the other using a PBO profile. At stock, the CPU scores 16,205 points in the multi-core and 2,160 points in the single-core tests. This marks a 5% increase in multi-threaded performance and a 10% uplift in single-core performance. With PBO, the chip scores 17,037 points in multi-core and 2,244 points in the single-core tests. These mark a 10% improvement in multi-core and a 14% uplift in single-core scores. In addition to Cinebench R23, the AMD Ryzen 5 9600X Zen 5" CPU was also tested in CPU-Z, but here, it was only benchmarked under the default profile, which might explain the lower scores, and we have seen that the Zen 5 chips don't necessarily see a major IPC improvement in this test. Moving forward, we have ASUS's new benchmark where they have pushed the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X 16-core flagship Zen 5" desktop CPU to new heights. The chip was overclocked by ASUS's Tony on the ROG Crossrex 670 Gen motherboard using LN2 and scored 55,000 points in the R23 multi-threaded tests. This is by far the fastest Cinebench R23 score for the Ryzen 9 9950X that we've seen so far, even better than the ones conducted during AMD's Tech Day. So we can expect even better scores once hardcore overclockers get their hands on these chips, and it is not far away from outperforming Intel's world record set in the same benchmark using the Core i9-14900KS. AMD's Ryzen 5 9600X will be launching alongside the Ryzen 7 9700X on the 8th of August, while the Ryzen 9 9950X will be launching alongside the Ryzen 9 9900X on the 15th of August, so stay tuned for more Zen 5 action in the coming days.